This is Evolutionary Psychology, the podcast.
Actual evolutionary psychology by actual evolutionary psychologists. All right. We have an awesome guest with us today. Who's our guest, Dave?
It is Daniel Sznycer.
The great, the preeminent
Uh,
Daniel Sznycer.
yes.
What is there to say about this guy? He's so lovely, so funny. Research is absolutely brilliant, beautiful.
Yeah. He's really pushing the boundaries of sort of like functionalist approaches to emotions, evolutionary approaches to emotions, particularly things like shame, pride, guilt. There's a lot to unpack about how those work, and they're really important. And there's sort of a trope that like shame is useless, for example.
Mhm.
And we really cover the ground of sort of the history, and then also like what's the evidence and what's the argument for what's the logic for why we have this emotion.
Yeah, a lot of fun things came up in this conversation, whether self-esteem is bullshit, the three-breasted woman from Total Recall,
Right.
traveling, whether reading long, boring books makes you a better person. This was a really fun conversation.
Oh yeah, you had
Um,
sort of like a fire around. Well, what is that called when you like it's
I gave him
what?
some stumpers,
Yeah, you give him some stumpers. Yeah, that's right. And it
some
was fun to
Darwinian
kind of
stumpers.
tackle those. Yeah, maybe we can have
Yeah.
that as a segment, like
Yeah, maybe we should do a recurring thing where we stump the guest.
stump the guest. Oh, good. And maybe we can dial a friend.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
and then we can give the guest $1 million if they get it right. We can
Uh,
we,
well, maybe we quote unquote we can
Well, let's wait and see if maybe more people
Oh
support us
yeah,
on
on
Patreon, and
Patreon.
then and,
That's
and then
right.
we
Yeah.
can use the
Okay.
Patreon funds for that project.
Yeah. Okay. It'll be some dollar amount.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Okay. Yeah. It'll
maybe.
be to the left of the decimal point.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Enjoy, Daniel
Without
Sneezer.
further ado, Daniel Sznycer. Yeah. All right. So today we are very blessed to have Daniel Sznycer on. We were just going over a pronunciation of your name. My name is horrible, Pietraszewski, and my dad has like three uncles, and they each pronounce it differently. Is that true in your family? Does everybody pronounce it differently?
In Spanish, it's more common, but in Polish, it will be Petraszewski,
Oh,
something like
I
that.
didn't realize your name was Peter. No, I'm kidding. No, no, no. Yeah, no. The correct Polish way for my name is Pietraszewski. I
Petraszewski,
went to
yeah.
Warsaw and I checked in a hotel and it was the first time in my life where they were like, I didn't, they weren't asking me how to say it. And then I
Yeah.
said, so I asked them like, how do I say my name? And then they said it. And then I said, um, then we're like, well, how do you say your name to me? And I was like, Pietraszewski. And then they like stopped for a second. They were like, well, it is your name. I guess you could say it however you want. So they were very, very kind about it. But
Uh,
Daniel, we're very happy to have you here.
Likewise, great
Um,
to be here with you
yeah.
guys.
And we've had some people on, we've talked about anger and emotions. You study, as far as I understand it, what is considered self-conscious emotions. Um, that term, is that, I think I even sort of came across that term most consistently in some of your reviews of the past literature. Can you tell people a little bit about what is that? And then there's two options. One is either, how do you think about what you study and is it different than that? And then the other option is sort of like, what's the history of that research on self-conscious emotions?
Uh, okay, you ask many questions,
Yeah.
and
We're
interesting
we're a
questions.
professional question. I'm going to give you 10 questions.
I thought we were gonna
We
talk
can
about TV shows and TV dinners,
exactly. Yeah.
and now you
Yeah.
give me
No, we really
difficult
stalked
things.
you. Yeah, I know.
Can
I
I check my
know.
notes? Can I
We
chat
sandbagged this. Yeah,
GPT
we were
and
like, we were just chatting for like 20 minutes about nothing, and then boom. Yeah, exactly. No, we have plenty of time. We can edit out you searching ChatGPT. No, no, for real. Yeah. So, but no,
I'll
no, no.
check
Yeah,
GPT if
exactly. But what's
I
up
don't
with
remember what I
self-conscious
did.
emotions? Yeah.
You're getting me self-conscious now, but the thing began back in the early days when I was a young boy, I guess, and Tubi grabbed me by the
John
like
Tooby,
Scruff of the
John
neck.
Tooby,
the great John Tooby. Yes.
Yeah.
grabbed me by the shirt, and he told me, "Sonny, you're gonna study shame." And I said, "Yes, sir. Whatever you say, I'll do." Uh, okay, and the
So,
self-conscious emotion, yeah,
so your origin story for getting into this area was John Tooby told me to.
yes,
We
Okay, that's a
yeah.
which
pretty good
is
reason.
the best way to start any
Yes.
research project. So yeah, I started doing that, and the self-conscious moniker is a moniker that comes from psychodynamics and Freudian, I think, ways of looking at shame. And there's a prehistory of this, which I'm a little bit shady on. I should know much more than I do, but what I can say, there's a woman named H.R. Block, H.R. Lewis. No, H.R. Block is the taxes.
Mhm.
H.R. Lewis, and she was a psychologist. She was a clinician, and she was of the idea that shame and guilt were self-conscious in that and now I'm merging with her disciple of or some more experimental person who took research from H.R. Lewis and translated more into the research context, June Tangney. Her object of study is not so much shame and guilt, but rather the contrast between shame and guilt, like in free variation, like two sounds that you can make in free variation. So in some context, you can make two different sounds in a language, and linguists refer to that as free variation. And June was important in establishing differences, similarities and differences in shame and guilt. Basically, when people feel guilt, uh, they, at least in the American reports of the label guilt, it's kind of an approach and make up and apologize and stuff like that. And the theme in shame is illusion, avoidance, and escape. And she was very instrumental in alerting people to these interesting differences. When you mess up, when you screw up, people say that they feel shame, they feel guilt, they feel embarrassed, and we go back and forth with these labels. Although there's for some reason, people they're they tend to roughly match what we believe is the reputation management system to the shame level, and imposing undue costs on someone that you value the guilt label. Okay, all of this is boring and academic, and no one cares. But
We're
they
done.
pay
We're
me
done with the episode now. Okay.
they
No.
pay me to dissertate about things that no one cares. So I'm inured to it. So I'm gonna do
I
it.
love the verb dissertate.
So I'm gonna do
We're
it
not paying you, by the way.
unless and until you stop me.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh, no, we're just
my
gonna.
children tell me to shut up all the time, so I'm also inured to that. So you can tell me to shut up anytime, and I'm happy.
Good.
I'm
Yeah.
happy
Okay,
either way.
Yeah.
so shame is about hiding, escaping the situation, covering yourself up. Guilt is about
Evasion is a good label. Yeah, good.
evasion. So shame
Yes.
is about evasion. Guilt is about apologizing and making amends. Is that a fair
Yeah.
characterization of the
Yeah. Yeah.
distinction
Yeah.
that had been in the literature for a while?
Yeah, and June was very important in recognizing these facts and sorting what goes with what,
Got
and
it.
saying that there's similarity, in the general scene, when you screw up, people may feel shame, people may feel guilt, may feel embarrassment. And one question that she elaborated in her career is, what are the conditions under which, what functions, if any, these things have, and do they have functions at all? And
Hmm.
what are the conditions that elicit these emotions? And her answer, based on her reading of Helen Lewis and her own research, is that shame is the poor cousin of guilt. Um, if you, this is the free variation. There are two alleles that could compete for a place in the loci, in the locus. of this.
Evolutionary genetics reference to make things easier for our
Yeah,
listeners.
To
yeah,
use
that
the
was a
simple
very helpful
analogy,
analogy
Yes,
that
to
exactly.
you can feel one thing or the other thing in this context, and they're more or less interchangeable, except that they're not interchangeable in the sense that if you have a healthy attributional style, if you've been socialized to and you had socialization is a big aspect of this theory and maybe other things too, but if you had a good socialization with nurturing parents and a healthy way to disentangle that, maybe you're not stupid necessarily because you failed the exam, you can correctly, give yourself a break, etc. Then you impute that unfortunate event to something specific about yourself. It's the self judging the self or some part of the self, judging the self, and it's very much what it's very much a psychodynamic intrapersonal question. It's how I judge the event. So if I judge the event as reflecting poorly upon my whole self, and that's the maladaptive slash pathological, pathogenic, bad and ugly way to do it, the system flips to shame. And why? Well, because thinking, oh, bad dad. So my daughter says, bad daddy, bad daddy. If I screw up the exam or the whatever, I didn't tip the waitress or something. If I for whatever reason I my judgment of myself is bad daddy, bad Daniel, yuck, disgusting self, I feel shame because it's very painful, and the pain of the attribution makes me want to escape and hide, etc. And Jung recognizes that there's a paradoxical thing that he's a guy, so very interesting sociologist at UCSB. He studied shame. He studied something he called the shame rage cycle, and in marital disputes and so on, he sees that I'm ashamed for something that I did and I lash out in anger at my wife, and then my wife is hurt, and I feel additional shame now, in addition to the baseline shame, but now I have shame about the rage, and I have further taint to my honor, and I need further aggression, maybe an honor killing, in order to paper over the slide or
that
something.
sounds like it makes absolutely no sense at all.
I don't usually engage in honor killings. I have never done it so far.
I
Okay,
think
So
yeah.
David meant the
far.
science, not the. But anyway, yeah. But it's good to know both
I
things.
was referring
Yeah,
to the shame leading to rage leading to shame
right.
model of how this. I don't understand
It
that at
sounds
all.
terrible. I mean, just if it
Yeah,
does happen. But so just so we're on the same page. So self-referential emotions, the self-refer or self-conscious is
Yeah,
self-referential. I misspoke. So basically, it's that there is a representation of not only the social world and others and how I feel about them. Are you nice? Are you good? So for some reason, so far, which the theories haven't come up with or talked about, there's another set of attention placed upon the self. And then there's an evaluation of as I'm bumbling through the world, doing good things and bad things, there's an attribution to like if I'm the source of this good thing or bad thing, how do I feel about that? And then how does that in consequence, if I attribute it a bad thing to myself, all of a sudden I'm judging myself if it's self-referential. And then there are these emotions when the detection of I've judged that bad, Dave bad.
that's a very good summary. Yes.
Great.
And there are good emotions and bad emotions, and this model applies to guilt and shame, the bad pair, and also to what Tiny calls alpha pride and beta pride. If you achieve and you attribute to the self, that's alpha pride. Jessica Tracy calls that hubris. Hubris, the arrogant variety of pride. Whereas if you impute the success to something transient, unstable about yourself, controllable, then that's beta pride
Mm.
slash authentic pride slash achievement oriented pride. We're writing a paper on pride. And there's not much of a question of why there should be these things in the head, which are the functions of these things. Their universe or their referential frame is these things happen. There's an antecedent to these things, so the antecedent is king here. And but moreover, Jessica Tracy then in further models she incorporates the social view. But Tangney says explicitly in some papers that not only these things are about the self, but emphatically she thinks that these things are very much not about other people.
Mm.
Any, which is I think weird, but
Crazy.
interesting nevertheless, and testable. We have tested that recently with
Hmm.
Mitchell Landers and Patrick Durkee.
It's wrong, I
Um,
imagine.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
so okay, so and the data the data in support of these so-called attributional theories of self-conscious emotions are mostly correlational. For example, they find correlations between your attributional style more bad daddy goes with shame,
Hmm.
and I should have studied more goes with guilt, as they predict.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But the
So
data
just
are
so individual differences and tendency to do these things.
exactly
Okay,
yes.
got it. Yeah.
Yes. It's I guess it meshes with a clinical
Mm,
framework. There's
right.
variation among people. There's healthier people with healthier
Right.
attributional styles,
Got it.
and there's more pathological people, pathogenic, whatever people. There's a very interesting paper of Tiny a number of papers on the correlates of shame. Fantastically informative and important work on the correlates of shame, and shame correlates with a whole bunch of interesting things. It correlates with suicidality, it correlates with feelings of inferiority, with feeling small, wanting to hide, in the clinic with paranoia, with anxiety, with all the kind of all items that you would predict if you adopt a more functionalist or adaptationist interpersonal view of this emotion, as in you screwed up, you emitted costs, and people are aware of these costs, and now they recalibrate how much they value you, and that's fitness decreasing. And the question is how to evade detection, evade their imposition of costs,
Yeah.
etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
let me see if I can
yeah.
summarize
But
what you're. Yeah.
put a footnote that the evidence is correlational. There's a
Yes.
few experiments, but the experiments were in the confirmationist framework,
Hmm.
or things to confirm. And we've recently run a falsificationist approach. But yeah, go ahead and we
Yeah,
can
so we're
return to that.
setting the
Yeah.
stage for
Yeah.
Daniel Sznycer to come in and tell
Exactly.
everyone why
To
they're wrong. But so
exactly. Yes.
you've laid the groundwork for the pre-existing research that has been done on shame and pride, and it's descriptive. It's shame is about David is bad, guilt is about David did a bad thing. Pride, there's authentic pride and hubristic pride. Hubristic pride is David is awesome. Authentic pride is David did an awesome thing.
Yeah.
And this is coming from not an evolutionary functionalist approach, but more of a how do we make people feel better? How do we fight mental illness?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
the thinking there is, oh, well, shame is bad because you're
Yes.
thinking that you yourself are bad. That's going to lead to depression and suicidality. So we want to avoid shame. Shame is bad. Guilt is better. It's not about you. It's about what you did. So shame is a bad emotion. Guilt is okay. When it comes to pride, you don't want to be too arrogant and think that you yourself are
Yeah.
awesome. You want to attribute it to what you did. So hubristic pride bad. Authentic pride good. I mean, it's even baked into the words. Authentic has positive
That.
connotation. So this is
Yeah.
basically the paradigm where we're thinking in terms of good or bad emotions, in terms of mental health, not in terms of what their underlying functions are and why they exist, why they're in the head. But we are on the Evolutionary Psychology podcast, and we want to know why these systems are in the head. And so that's
Okay.
where Daniel Sneezer comes in and tells
Yes.
us
But
why are
before
these
Breath
systems?
neck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I very much agree with platforming me. I've been deplatformed, but you're platforming me, so I'm very happy, and I thank you very much. But
Mhm.
before I'm platforming myself about my theory and Tubi's theory, we should say that a public choice theory of why people do what they do, including ourselves, is the more funding is needed theory of everything of academia. We are government employees and we do what they pay us to do. And if they pay us to find things, we find, and if they pay us to not find things, we don't find. And the what they pay, and I'm not saying this dismissively. We Everyone is an apparatchik, everyone is a government here in academia. Most of people, not you, not talented people like you, Pinsov, who made it in the real world, but and also smart people like Petrozhsky. But okay, so
Or
what
everybody listening.
so what so Tangni, and again, this is not this, I have high respect for her. Tangni is being paid to do clinician work, and I believe she does. I don't know if she's a clinician or not, but okay. So, yes, exactly like you said, there's the if shame is associated with bad things in the clinical scene, we want to help people to avoid bad things and to be happy.
Mhm.
And it stands to reason that if guilt is associated with more making up and restoring the relationship and etc., then maybe it stands to reason that and people in shame go crazy and kill their daughters, or more
Or
subtly
themselves. Yeah.
they kill themselves, or they
Yeah.
harm their wives, etc. It stands to reason that you want to fix that. But so maybe there's a link between the what they pay you for and what you find. And but like you said, also it's important to note that one big goal of the clinical work on this is to remove or minimize the experience of shame. So shame is a bad thing. It's not a messenger of bad news. There's an analogy straightforward with a physical pain system.
Mm.
You feel pain, you take painkillers, but actually physical pain is a highly organized adaptation. The bad thing is the damage to the tissue, and if you don't have physical pain, you die young because you're burning yourself, and you're not removing your hand. And so I think there's a direct analogy with that. And in the clinical context, if you they want to get rid of the bad stuff, and shame is in the ledger of the bad stuff. But okay, now I can platform myself, and but we believe that shame is not the bad thing, but the bad thing is the consequences of being demoted in the representation of value in the heads of other people when information reaches their brain, and those are bad
Sorry, well, let's
consequences.
unpack that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the representation of value in other people's brains is being demoted when you feel shame. So what let's unpack what is a representation of value? What makes it go up or down?
Okay, so Tubi and Lida got a grant in 2005, big grant in NIH to do explore their brilliant ideas that they had since the 90s, or perhaps since they were born, because they came to the world with all the knowledge. And there was a lot of work in our lab, the CEP UCSB lab under Tubi and Lida, and other labs too. But the idea is that the brain has machinery for um, things, events, states of affairs, partners, anything, pretty much anything has positive, negative, or neutral effects on the probability that your genes will replicate in the long term. And we expect organisms designed by selection to have ways to capture the goods and to like the okay I am usually okay like the standard the jazz standard accentuate the positives, eliminate the negatives. It's a 1940 Bing Crosby, I think. Uh,
Mm.
okay, I'm
We can
trying to
put it
be.
in
Intermittent
the we
there.
can put it in the
I
show notes. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
that would
yeah.
be great. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be witty
Well,
because I think people are trying to be witty in these things, but I don't know. Okay, tell me, and
but
I
can I pause real quick?
yeah.
So like for example, Daniel, if you're a really good cook and it's easier for you to cook and like get food than it is for me, and you're just really good at it, you're and there's sort of positive externalities for me, whether it's sort of reciprocal or it's just a positive externality or a mutualism. We sort of talked about that on the podcast, but sort of I'm going through the world sort of looking for the events, as you put it, or attributes of people that are sort of more beneficial to me. And I should be designed by natural selection, or my mechanisms precisely should be designed to value aspects of you or you compared to David, for example, if you have more of these things or you have this thing and David doesn't have any. Um, So is that right?
Well, let
Yeah,
me back up. So we
Yeah.
first have the broader concept of value, which is just anything that has a positive or negative effect on the fitness of the valuer, right? That natural selection designed our value systems to track fitness regularities, stuff that promoted our fitness ancestrally will have value to us in the
Mm.
present moment. And so anything can have value from, a desk to a chair to a piece of food to a predator will have highly low value. A potential disease will have, really negative value. An attractive mate might have really positive value. A beautiful landscape might have really positive value. So that's just the broader concept of value can apply to anything. But within that broader subset, we can look at people and
yeah,
say, does this person have positive or negative value for me? Is this the
totally.
type of person that would have had positive fitness
Affordances.
consequence
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, positive fitness affordances for me? And if so, I want to spend more time with that person and try to get some of those benefits from that person. If person has low fitness value to me or would have ancestrally or has cues of low fitness value, then I want to avoid that person, stay away from them, etc.
Totally.
Is that a good
Yeah.
summary of the way you're
That's a
thinking about it?
great summary, yes.
Okay.
And so there is a very rich and complex, we believe, psychology for imputing value, positive or negative, to other people. And some elements of value computation may be similar across domains, but a workhorse uh, part of the identity of if psyche spent, I think, I don't know, just to pull a number out of my head, 50% or 70%. I think a huge part of FEP work, FPsych work, is on value computation,
Mm.
mate value and partner value and landscape value, food value. And there are specificities in how the mind computes the value of people or partners. Like Lida is fond of saying, if I evaluate John as a mate the way I would evaluate a piece of food, then I would take the cue of richness that's proper to do for foods. Richness may be a cue to fat content, which is important nutrient. But if I apply that Q to computing the value of people, then that
You,
doesn't
you don't
work.
you don't want to eat your mate and
Yeah,
copulate
what
with your food.
what
That would
what
be
she
For the
said,
most
disastrous.
part,
or
yeah,
what Lita
Yes,
would
yeah.
say
yes.
is, I would have married she put it succinctly as I would have married a chocolate bar.
I would have married a chocolate bar. Yes,
That's right.
that's the
And the
Yeah,
that's a
argument
funny way
there
to
is
put it.
right. The argument
yeah,
there is that value is not just general. There are domain specific values. So what makes a food valuable is going to be different than what makes a mate valuable, which will be different than what makes, say, an ally valuable, or a piece of furniture valuable, or a landscape valuable. So we have domain specific criteria for evaluating things.
right. And just to say out loud, and this is, I feel like we're recapitulating the CP. We're like taking first principles here, like Big Bang. But the evaluation of value has been something traditionally, and you guys can tell me if you agree with this, has been very much sort of an instinct blindness in psychology. And I think taking an evolutionary approach, the idea that the software or the evolved organism needs to compute value is something that it's very hard to think when you're just the organism itself and you're just like, well, of course, like, things are beautiful. Like, this is beautiful. I like food. This tastes good. Well, why is that? Why is that? Well, it just is, right? So taking an evolutionary approach forces you to, um, and this is very much the to be point, not take anything for granted. We talked about this. We had Deb on, and we talked about that a lot. Like, you don't, and so why is it good? It's because there's some value slash
Right.
corresponding outcome in the world that corresponds to fitness, right? So like water, nutrients, surviving, having social support, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right.
There's no
So
objective value. There's a
yeah.
measure.
So
Okay,
we've
so
just
we
established
have value.
value. Yep.
And we have people, so not only value in general, but value of people. Okay, so we have those building blocks. What do you do with those building blocks? How does shame fit into this?
Well, so once you have that in place or co-evolving with the psychology of value, you have a number of adaptive problems that arise from the existence of this machinery and, promoting the higher value in the brains of other people.
Right. So like if you can evaluate
L-
me, so Daniel, the moment that like this software is in you to evaluate other agents according to like what value they have, that's a problem for me now because
right,
I don't want to be in your category of a bad person.
Right. That would be
Right.
So if
Yes.
you have view me as low value, or if everyone in my social environment views me as a low value social partner, that is catastrophic for my fitness. It's equivalent to death. Even perhaps even worse than death. No one's going to want to mate with me. No one's going to want to help me or take my side or support me in any way. So that is a huge fitness cost. So what you're talking about is a really big adaptive problem. How do I make others in my social environment value me?
It's yes, very much so. It's a representation in the brain that is not just a pattern of beats in the brain, but it translates into very real consequences because these in a simple model of how this value person partner value works, these magnitudes set thresholds on, for example, in altruistic in decisions on whether to be altruistic with other people. These things set thresholds of what's the highest cost that you would incur in order to benefit other someone else by a given set of but a fixed number of benefits, and reciprocally
Let's unpack that a bit. So if I value you, Daniel Sneezer, I'm going to be willing to make big sacrifices to benefit you. But if I don't
yes,
value you, then I am not willing to do much of anything to benefit you. And in fact, I might even do things that hurt you because your welfare just doesn't matter to me at all. Right. So I might just, in
yes,
going about my life, I might bump into you or step on you or whatever. You have low value to me, so who cares? But if I really value you, I'm gonna, avoid stepping on you and bumping into you. I'm gonna do things to help you if I can. If I can benefit you really highly at a low cost to myself, I'm gonna do that. And even if I can benefit you really highly at a high cost to myself, I might even do that because you're just so valuable to me. So how much we value people directly translates into how we treat them, into the things we actually do in the world that affect them.
yes. In a
Right.
toy model of this value variable,
Mhm.
this runs in theory from minus infinite to plus infinite. If I
Mhm.
value you positively, I'm willing to sacrifice for your welfare. If I value you at exactly zero, I'm not willing to lift a finger to save your life if you're drowning, for example. If I could spend one penny to save your life and the life of your family, etc., I wouldn't if I value you at exactly zero. But I wouldn't spitefully impose costs on you. If I value you negatively, I would pay costs in order to harm you. There's a genre of YouTube videos where people key the Lamborghinis of other people out of envy, and envy is
Mhm.
a spiteful emotion. Some people are paying the cost, the risk of going to jail in order to impose costs on the
Right.
enemy or the
So that
rival.
would be a case of
Uh,
negative value. So like
Negative valuation,
yeah,
yeah.
to
Enemies,
I'd be willing to make a sacrifice to hurt you when we both wind up worse off. But
Mm,
because you're more worse off than me, I'm going to do it
yeah,
because that's how much I hate you. So that would
yeah,
correspond to something like hatred or envy or something
right.
like
yes,
that.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to go back to shame, I screw it's a two-person game. The minimal game is kind of a two-person game. So in the tiny story, it's a maybe it's a one-person game. You're solitary in the island. You didn't live up to your ego ideals or something like that. You feel shame. You say bad daddy, bad Daniel, and you feel shame because you are the judge of yourself. But here in this story, it's a two-person game where Daniel screws up somehow in tennis or in cooking or in whatever. David learns about this information. You guys used to value my welfare at 50% as highly as your own welfare. That is to say that in this toy model, you were willing to spend a maximum of $5 in order to benefit me by $10, or that you required only $5 when you're imposing uh, you're requiring a minimum of $5 in order to impose a cost of $10 to me in the reciprocal taking. But you're valuing me at 50%. But if you additionally learn new information, regulatory information that my suckiness is higher, then you correspondingly downgrade that, and that translates into less favorable terms of the relationship now for me. And that means I get fewer good stuff from you, and you guys take more actions that would benefit you but cost me. And so that's a bad thing for me because I'm getting fewer chocolate bars from you, and I'm getting more patches in the face from you, less support in conflicts, etc. And that's not a good state of affairs for a creature that needs cause and benefits to allay the cause and and collect benefits from the environment. And we can imagine that in response to this recurrent problem, there may have been selection for something whose function is to minimize the capturing of those bad costs.
Right.
And so perhaps shame is that machine.
Yeah. So if I can
Okay,
just
so
sort of, yeah. So we've got, so in the old model, it was that sort of like for some reason, we're just conscious of ourselves, we're self-judging, and it's sort of maladaptive and sort of, especially shame is useless, right? Because it's just sort of like you're hard on yourself, and we just want to get rid of that. This idea is that the reason why we have a representation of ourself is because that software allows us to prevent or address social costs when other people either have found out or might find out about something that would cause them to devalue me. So it's either preventative or reparative for a very specific class of situations, social situations where other people are going to value me less. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so one question then is, and maybe we can start talking about the data a little bit too. And David, I'll let you go in a second too. Sorry. Is I imagine one of the reasons why people don't think it's social is because of this sort of preventative aspect, right? There's sort of like a almost proximate ultimate idea where sort of like if I'm alone in a room, I might and if I like let's say I kill somebody in a room, right? And I don't think anybody's going to find out, but I still might feel guilt or shame about that.
Mhm.
And I think there's sort of this toy idea, or like let's say it's like I steal a candy bar from a store. Let's just make it less crazy, right? And like I have good reason to think that nobody's going to find out. There might be individual differences, and maybe some people don't feel any, but maybe some people would feel guilt and shame. And I think maybe that residual feeling, even when it feels like there's no social consequence per se,
Mhm.
might be part of the intuition that it's not social at all.
Could be. Yeah.
Is that true? And then for people who haven't kind of understood the idea of sort of like cost benefit or like signal detection or error management. So number one, is that fair? And then number two, is my summary right that the idea is that these are preventative or reparative emotions for other people devaluing you?
Yeah. Yes. Uh, or no. Yes, I agree. Yes. I think the lingering residual feeling of the self, it could be one reason why there's this theory of the self. There's an analogy with other adaptations, social adaptation, with that adaptations that we believe are social,
Right.
that can also be used in solo mode. And so Chomsky says that language is for articulating ideas, a little bit of self-theory of language, and other people think that language is a complex machine for the sake of interacting with other people. So there's a little bit of an analogy there. Other emotions, social, we believe social emotions can also be deployed in solo mode. So imagination, planning, etc., are important components of these things. My suspicion, although I haven't done any study on this, is that the folk theory of shame is, if I ask my mom or my aunt or someone like that, I imagine that normal people might have the social theory of shame. Hey, mom, why do people feel shame? Well, duh, when you screw up, you don't want people to catch you.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, of course you destroy incriminating evidence. Like, what kind of question is that?
Mm.
Sure, so they don't catch you. Duh. So I think my vague suspicion is that normal people think this have the social theory, and maybe you have to go to college maybe to learn the self theory of shame, maybe,
Right. You have
but
to
we
get
need more
paid to
funding.
have weird, convoluted ideas that are wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so early studies on shame that I've done, so it's a little bit like recapitulating the self-esteem theory of self-esteem. In self-esteem, people found a correlation between self-esteem, how I feel about myself, and all sorts of good outcomes, happy people, richer people with more attractive mates, and happy kids and beautiful large cars in California,
Yeah,
like
so we
you
just got
guys
to jack
live.
up everyone's self-esteem, and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
all of our
Yeah.
problems will be
Yes,
solved. Yeah.
Yes.
there was the it's a story worth of Tom Wolfe, the great American satirist and commentarist. There's a guy by the name of Joe Vasconcelos or something like that. They saw correlations between high self-esteem and all sorts of good outcomes, and they ran to say, okay, we need a task force and we need to invest millions of dollars in interventions. They ran to the interventions, the college interventions, school interventions, and they spend God knows how much money in order to boost self-esteem. So I go to UCSB when I was a grad student, and I'm riding my bike on the way to some department or somewhere. And I see an art student holding a mirror with a banner on top of the mirror, and the thing says, "I'm you're beautiful" or "I'm beautiful," meaning it's a self-esteem boosting intervention. And if
Mm.
we do that, then everyone is happy and winning. And I'm thinking to myself, what crap is this?
Yeah.
I'm ugly. You're not gonna fool me. I'm ugly. I'm not beautiful. What is this? What is this garbage? Okay, so all of these things, participation trophies, and
Hmm.
this multi-decadal intervention on self-esteem has the origins in this uh, iffy, weak
Right.
thinking that there's a self, there's a correlation. Let's
Yeah.
let's boost the correlation, and so
Yeah, it's
uh,
kind of
We
amazing how much bad psychology has just infiltrated Western culture. I mean, this
yeah.
idea that we do things to increase our self-esteem or to feel good about ourselves, and we need to make everyone feel good about themselves. Like that is a really huge part of Western culture, and it's kind of amazing how much that idea is just pervasive in the way we talk and engage with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's a lot of like advertising too. It's just this sort
Yeah,
of like throw it. Yeah. And I just like to, we had Ed Ahan on and he had this really good point that it's sort of the medical analog with pain is really clear. And Daniel, you alluded to that earlier, where you would sort of laugh if somebody said, well, like we've done these studies and like if a bone is broken or their lung is punctured or, they're bleeding, their skull is fractured, they're in pain. And so the way to make people's bodies better is to get rid of pain, right? Like if you just
yeah,
gave them drugs so they wouldn't feel the pain, like that would be a joke, right? Of course, what you do is you fix the problem and the pain, but
right,
you don't just give
right,
them the painkiller and then just send them back out in the world with a broken
yeah,
bone or a punctured lung or, a cracked skull. And I think that exactly the self-esteem, if Daniel, what you're saying is that the reason why self-esteem was tracking these things is because these were good things, like people who are healthy, people who have support, who have resources, who are doing okay in life. It makes sense that their psychology has this setting of like things are pretty good, but that's not the causal element just in the same way. And that's not like the point of leverage of changing it. It's in the same way that like you wouldn't just change the pain level without addressing like the broken bone.
totally, yep, yep. Um, so I have early studies showing. So it's an amazing Geiger counter-like thing, the brain, in registering in different formats or domains all the time the goods and bads that are impacting yourself or your uh, extended genotype. Um,
So the Festivus, this thing where you air the grievances, is a real thing that your brain is constantly like, these are the costs that are currently being imposed on me. These are all the good things, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's sort of always cranking.
yes. Sorry, I lost the train of thought, but
Sorry, Daniel.
registering all the time and And so the shame that you feel in yourself very closely tracks. I've done studies where people are put into one of two perspectives: the perspective of the person who screws up, or the perspective of an observer of someone else who screws up. And for each of 20 or 30 bad things like sexual infidelity and theft and bad table manners, etc., etc., I asked half of the people how much shame would you feel if this was true of you. The other half of the people imagine this is true of someone else. How negatively would you view them? A rough measure of devaluation. And what I find is that the feeling of shame that people report in anticipation. It's not shame. Like many other emotions, shame can activate in retroactive mode if they have seen you stealing and now they frown at you and they tell you you suck. They avoid you. They want to punch you. You feel shame, but also you feel shame in anticipation. Um, and the idea here is that for behavior guidance, you need a number of anticipated payoffs of the actions. One is the personal payoff derived from an action. Stealing is good. Stealing is a good thing because if I steal from you, I get stuff, and that's good for me.
Quote Daniel
Uh,
Sznycer. It's just yeah,
No,
stealing is
yeah, we'll
good.
just take that quote
We'll
out of
put that
context.
exactly. We'll put that on a T-shirt and attribute to
and in addition, stealing is bad because if
you.
you catch me, then I go to jail or you punch me.
Right.
Uh, and so, um, and so, okay, the other thing I wanted to say is costs and benefits are perhaps the most fundamental variables in all models of the evolution of anything. R B greater than C in kin selection, in friendship evolution, in parental investment, in the evolution of war, in the evolution of anything, costs and benefits are the fundamental variables. So this is about how organisms evolve to estimate these C's and B's, and parts of these things are social. And so the feelings, these fluffy feelings, the genius idea that Tubi and Lita had, these fluffy feelings in the social domain or emotions are not pure fluff. They convey important information, fitness relevant information. And so in these studies that I ran a number of years ago, I find that you ask people to focus on their own shame, their own personal shame. Don't think about anything, don't think about other people, just focus on your own most innermost feelings. And those most innermost feelings spookily track very strongly the negativity with which other people evaluate you if you take actions X, Y, or Z, very much in Goldilocks fashion. And one element of value. So I started doing so shame, then pride, then other emotions, then value of food, then value of body parts, and other things. And now I'm working more on abstract elements of value computation. The thing is that um, so Goldilocks is one element of value computation. You can imagine value needs to be computed just right or accurately, a different way to put it. If you overcompute the value of a watermelon, you are over investing in how much you would be willing to trek in order to acquire that watermelon, so that puts you in the red.
Right.
If
It would
you
be weird if
under
I like protected a watermelon like I did my son and like threw the watermelon out to like and be like was run over by a semi truck or something. You'd be like,
exactly,
that
yes,
was
Yeah.
dumb. Why did he do that? Yeah.
exactly,
Like,
yes.
yeah.
It's very important to get the values right
Right.
evolutionarily. If you get the
Yeah.
values wrong,
Yeah.
your genes are
There's
toast.
Yeah.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
two types of mistake, and so Goldilocks, just right. In the story of Goldilocks, the big, the hot too hot bowl is not good. You burn yourself. Too cold is your, etc. Not cooking the food. And there's a just right, and there's a just right for everything, including for so and for behavior guidance. So you're integrating two streams of value. One is the personal payoff of getting the piece of cake or having the sex act with that person or staying lazy in bed instead of studying, etc. And the other one is the social payoff. And in
Mhm.
order for adaptive behavior guidance, you need a lawful, smart, fitness promoting integration of these values. And so the idea is that the anticipatory feeling of shame that you have with respect on an act by act basis for stealing, for becoming lazy, etc., may perhaps it might convey information about the actual consequences in the brains of others if they find out about these things. And the answer is that yes, the amount of shame, the intensity of shame that people report for each of these acts very closely tracks. It moves up or down in lockstep with the actual displeasure that other people report if it was someone else taking that action. And moreover, these things happen in many different places, in big industrial societies, in small scale societies, very remote from each other, some of them off the grid, hunter gatherer foragers.
Right. You've done incredible
Millennia,
cross-cultural. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
the one other iteration is millennia ago. So we went to a cousin of the Hammurabi laws, roughly 4,000 years ago in modern day Iraq, in ancient Mesopotamia. And we have beautifully preserved, incredible, it's almost a miracle that we have these incredible laws in the if-then threat conditional format. If you rape your slave, you need to pay X number of shekels of silver. If you kill a man, even though he hasn't done anything, you have to pay 66 shekels of silver. If your ox has sharp horns and the agent of the state told you to file their horns and you haven't, then the next day they run amok, they kill someone, you need to pay 30 shekels of silver. So those are in fossil-like forms, um, those are artifacts containing an ancient lawmaker's evaluation and the shame that people express for all of these acts, ancient acts from remote societies, culturally extremely foreign societies, they track A, the evaluations of other people, and B, massively cross-culturally, harmonically across many cultures. The shame in 15 small-scale societies track the devaluation expressed by people in each of these 15 small-scale societies, but also the devaluation expressed by people in each of the other 14 small-scale societies. So the shame expressed by the shuar of the Ecuadorian Amazon for each of these 12 different acts tracks massively highly the interpersonal devaluation that people in the Mongolian steppe report for each of these 12 acts. So there's a very strong universality in how people evaluate other people and how people feel shame about these things. And again, shame is not a fluffy feely, it is, but it also conveys information that might be useful in guiding your behavior.
One question, Daniel, is that are there aspects in which it doesn't vary, or where it does vary across? So,
Yes,
like, I mean, that's an interesting test of the hypothesis, right? So, for example, like, if we just have this arbitrary rule that, like, if I touch a gum tree, we think spirits will come into me for whatever reason, and so in our local island, touching a gum tree will be devalued,
yes.
but nowhere else. So in our island, I should feel shame when I do it. People
Yes.
should devalue me, and that's important for this particular place, but not other places. Are there things like that?
Yes, absolutely. Don't quote me on this, but my eyes glaze and water in tears when I hear about cultural variation. I don't care. I don't care. The short of it is I don't care. Uh,
Another
there's so
quote.
much
Yeah.
rich architecture that I want to look at that first.
Sure. Yeah. 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 Like the hard, the main
But
question. Yeah.
variation is very important. But
Yes.
I think the key to understand variation is to understand the architecture because you have the lever to understand everything.
Yeah.
And so exactly like you're saying, if the shame machine is designed to minimize, to accentuate the positives and minimize the negatives, it stands to reason that it should track like a
Exactly.
good Geiger counter
Yeah. Not
these
everything is going to be universal. There are going to be arbitrary conventions
yes,
because coordination.
exactly.
And so
A-
that is
and,
yeah, exactly.
and shame does it. So
Mm,
so value computation is generic, as Thomas Sowell might say, it is generic and it's also specific. There's massive layer of genericness in value computation. Humans make a living similarly,
right.
far and wide, past and present, and so that predicts that there will be strong regularities in how people impute um, values and okay,
Yeah, so walking
and
around with poop on your shoes is sort of universally devalued unless you're an infant,
right.
as Paul Bloom points out. But yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes. And then there's local games, and people track those local regularities too. So eating with your left hand is polluting in India, and in our data, people devalue more in India those who eat with their left hand more than in America, and correspondingly in India, people feel more shame if they eat with their left polluted
right.
hand in India more than in America. So there are these patterns of similarities and differences, and the different. I think value is you have one hammer and everything is a nail. My hammer is value, and value is a huge um, lock to the mystery of many things in these systems. And so much of my work has been on value. So Um, so I started expanding to many different things, shame, pride, and pride is the cousin of shame. So same thing with many different cultures. The pride is the emotion of advertising your greatness so that other people value you more highly and demanding that increase in valuation. It's not just doing the I'm great, but also making sure that other people increase how much they value you.
So
And
it's like because we talked about anger. So the idea is that pride, it's not just sort of incidental window dressing of, hey, a good thing happened to me. It's actually it's changing sort of settings and sort of what should I ask for from the world, the physical
yeah,
world, social world, and I'm entitled to more now
yes.
that there's sort of common knowledge, or maybe to the degree. I mean, maybe we can start talking about some of the
Yes, common
outputs. Yeah.
knowledge is interesting
Yeah.
in Pride
Yeah.
because this creates common knowledge, we believe. And yeah, exactly like you're saying, the
Right.
terms for the interaction should be more favorable to me if I really achieve something great.
Right. I mean that sort of runs counter to a popular cultural idea that we do things to increase our self-esteem or to feel good about ourselves, regardless of how what other people think of us. We might even say, I don't care what other people think. I want to write this book for me so that I can feel good about myself, that I did a good thing. I don't care what other people think about me writing the book, or I'm gonna get this PhD because it's for me, it's personally fulfilling, or I'm gonna do this charity work for me. I don't care what other people think of it, right? Um, what your data shows is that that's wrong. In some part of the mind, you are judging what other people are going to think of you for doing this thing, and you are going to be more motivated to do the things that other people judge you positively for doing, right? That there is a
Yeah,
very tight relationship between what I feel proud of and what I anticipate feeling proud of, and the status I get from other people for doing that thing. And you would not expect that relationship to exist if pride was just about me and not about how other people see me, right?
yeah. That this is seems as the expert bullshitologist, these are um, the trope that I'm doing it for myself and I don't care what other people say. That seems like bullshit, and that seems like bullshit relevant to these social games.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I say that there's a version of that is exactly bullshit, but there's another one that isn't? Can I push on
Hmm.
this a little bit?
Yeah.
Which is that I think when people are saying that, I think it's a smart evolved system that's sort of saying it's almost like it's sort of finding a status game where it's sort of like I want to do this thing like write a book, but I'm worried about people laughing at me and making fun of me. And I think the expression of like, I'm going to do it for myself and not care about what people think is the output of planning and motivational systems that are basically saying, I think I'm still going to get status or some benefit to doing this, but I need to recalibrate which audience I calibrate my self-conscious emotions to. So in other words, like, um, I'm going to do well in school and I'm not going to worry about what the bullies think about me. And so I'm going to
Mm,
do it for myself is the expression of I'm going to play this status game, but I'm in currently getting like the outputs of worrying about audiences that I
right.
don't think are in my long-term interest. So I
Uh,
do think like there's a smart version of this, but I don't
yeah.
think, the simple version I think is probably wrong.
Yeah. That's a nice. I like that idea. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that shame should be calibrated to not just audiences in general, but the specific audiences that matter most to you and that you're trying to impress, or that the
Right.
specific status game that you're invested in.
Yeah, and I think a
Yes.
lot of like the narrative of like, I don't care, I'm not going to care about what people think. And that's the beginning of people sort of like actualizing what they want of themselves. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the expression of it's a hard problem, right? Of sort of like the current status game I'm in is not the one I want to be in.
Hmm.
So in order to sort of like move out of it, I actually have to sort of like not take what the current group is doing and evaluating as seriously. And I need to like consider another status group or just pause it temporarily even. So like if I want to be a scientist and I think I'm going to be good at it, but I'm
Mm,
around a bunch of people who are
yeah.
like making fun of being intelligent, that's a really bad situation and there should be designed to sort of detect that I could do well, but if I follow the local social norms of
Hmm.
this value
Hmm.
community, then I'm sort of in trouble and you got to square that peg by either be like, well, I'm not going to do science, or bye guys, I'm going to go do science. One or the other.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. I think there's a number of so to introduce chaos in this conversation, I wanted to say something before and then return to this. The something before is that everything is value, and this shame contain there's a conceptual structure in value, just like there's, I think, conceptual structure in concepts. And this there's things that are like syntax like embeddedness and hierarchical structure. So so for example, if I still in the Heinz dilemma, if I steal medication that I cannot afford because I have some infection, in the grammar of infection, the worse the infection is, the worse it is for me, the more shame I feel because other people are going to avoid me more. But on the other hand, the medication the stealing medication for curing the disease, there's disease embedded in the concept of stealing,
Hmm.
and so stealing rules the rules. And but in the grammar of welfare trade-offs, if I steal a medication because I had a bigger infection, then the benefit of that medication is greater for me. So that should lead to less shame. So there's complex structure in value. And so you can concatenate elements of different value systems. So I did a study in which, the same study over and over and over, shame and value, same logic, but I concatenated with the food value of things. And so people impute different values to different food items, and the yummy subjective value that people think they would experience if they eat one watermelon, one strip of bacon, one almond, one onion, etc. It tracks the protein, the carb, the fat, and the water content of these foods, number one. So that's interesting because you have some FDA,
Yeah.
not FDA, whatever,
We're getting the
national.
values right, or our estimators are pretty good. There's
Yes,
evidence of design here. Yeah.
that's number one.
Yeah.
Yes, it reaches out into the world and it accurately grasp the nutrient content of the food, this food.
Hmm.
But then in
Yeah.
addition, you can, once you have this value of the food, you can transport internally to many different systems that operate on the basis of value. So the shame that I feel X from you
Right.
carries in it a trace of the protein content of the food that I steal from you.
Right. If I stole a carrot versus a hamburger, it
Right.
would be different. Yeah.
Yes. So that's a footnote. And to return to the Dave comment of the changing the audience, I think we've run studies with landers more experimentally and falsificationistly er yon. Uh,
Popper would be very happy with you. Yeah.
um, Pitting the adaptationist interpersonal against the attributional theory of shame. And we've recently shown in the United States and in India that variables relevant to shame and guilt interpersonally, they very much predict how much shame and how much guilt people report. But variables relevant to how I interpret or attribute these events, they do close to nothing. They do worse than nothing. And okay, so we have evidence in falsificationist mode that the evidence strongly support this interpersonal view, uh, almost don't support at all the attributional theory. Okay, so the question
Wait.
is,
No, I thought evolutionary psychology hypotheses were just so stories and they were unfalsifiable. I don't understand how this could be happening. You're telling
yeah,
me not only that they're testable, but that they do a better job of accounting for the data than other psychological theories. That's wild.
sometimes, I don't know,
In this case,
Yeah.
yeah.
one study at least,
For
uh,
his part,
Okay.
Daniel. Yeah.
yeah, they can be useful. Yes, I think.
Yeah.
The
Uh,
funding is needed.
Yeah.
More funding always, yes.
So they're
They're useful if
smart.
they give us
So
funding.
the idea is, so they're smart. Like these emotions that are sort of had been seen as useless, are
The
smart.
emotions are useful
Yeah.
to navigate social interactions. And like you're saying, Dave, then the question is, what can we use this interpersonal theory to interpret? We should still pay attention to the effects found in the attributional intrapersonal theory. And I think there's a number of explanations that can be generated from the interpersonal theory to make sense of findings that seem purely intrapersonal, like the one that you
Right. Like when you're
that
stealing a candy bar and nobody's around, yeah, or something. Yeah.
yes. So I think a number of interesting things. One, for example, is something pointed out by David Gilbert, Paul Gilbert, a brilliant British shamologist, totally brilliant guy, highly inspiring guy. And he says he's a clinician too, but more interpersonal. And he says there's a feeling of inferiority and what is it exactly? Yeah, feeling of inferiority and shame. Okay, so this is a big theme in attributional. If I feel shame, I feel like crap, I feel inferior, etc. And Gilbert says that women in abusive relationships, they blame, and blaming the self is a big attributional shame effect. And he says that women in abusive relationships blame themselves, like in attributional theory. But when they exit the relationship, they blame the other guy. So blaming
Mm,
the self could be in the standard textbook intrapersonal attributional effect. It could very much be in the service, incidental to or tributary to or functional to interpersonal functions, namely deterring attacks. If you're bullying me, sure, sorry, it was my fault that I didn't
I
do the
see.
bit right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
My
So
fault,
it's
I'm
sort
bad,
of
I'm
a
sorry.
it's even really smart. It's not that it's dumb. It's
Right.
that it's sort of self-protective. It's making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
It's sort of like
Yeah.
what can I do to minimize being a target?
Yeah.
I'm not going to do things that like demand better treatment because that's just going to recoil, right? I mean, presumably
Yeah.
that's sort of calibrated. So interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. So we
So we
shouldn't try to
Yeah.
get rid of shame. Shame isn't bad. It's not a bad emotion that we need to make go away. We need to invest millions of taxpayer dollars into making people feel less shame and make people feel good about themselves. Shame is actually doing useful things for us. It exists in our head for a reason. It was selected by natural selection for a reason. It's analogous to physical pain, just as we wouldn't want to eliminate people's ability to feel physical pain, we wouldn't want to eliminate people's ability to feel social pain. It is sending them important signals about how they are viewed by others in their social environment. It has a function. It's useful. Let's not get rid of it.
Yes. And if a clinician wants to know then what intervention you suggest to eliminate the bad feeling of shame, the straightforward answer would be, well, make yourself great again, namely, become richer, more attractive, have
Yep.
better health, and then your shame will be assuaged or reduced. And how you
Right.
do that, I have no idea, but
Yeah,
maybe
we're not trying
get a
to
magic wand or something.
yeah, it's not so much I need to change the feeling in your head and lower that feeling. It's what can I do to your situation in the world such that your feelings will correctly represent the world and represent it as being better for you. So how
Yeah.
can I change how other people value in your environment to make you a more valuable social partner?
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this
Find
gets
people
into
who value you, appreciate you.
Yeah, yeah,
okay. So yeah,
yeah,
find
exactly.
people who
Hey,
value you, or if you're
Yeah,
feeling shame. I mean, this gets to like what the outputs are. Like we talked a little bit, we talked about sort of what the eliciting conditions are. When anger, we talked about sort of what the outputs are. And this also gets to like clarifying functionally what it's for. We can talk about guilt in a second, but for shame, what does it, so the idea of shame is it's minimizing the costs that others might represent about me by is it then there's a grammar of sort of like preventing knowledge from this happening? Is that roughly what it is?
yeah, part of it is limiting the broadcast or the leakage of negative information
Okay. So for
to
example, it
others.
might be like introversion. So like if am a teacher and there's a student who I think is really smart, but they're just completely introverted, like Aaron Lukashevsky's idea of like there's cost to extroversion, right? Like
Mhm.
if I think I'm at home, my parents are abusive, let's say, and I'm a kid and I'm calibrated to that world. I go into a classroom and the teacher calls on me and I could be brilliant, but I'm like super introverted because in my head, the world is just out to get me. If I say anything, I'm just going to get literally smacked or figuratively smacked. And so that might be like quote unquote a maladaptive sense of shame, but it's in this sense, it's sort of like it makes sense why that evolved psychology would have that setting in that situation. And that's for minimizing, it's calibrated to minimize the cost of the home environment, but it might not be correct objectively or ideal in that school environment, for example.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. Ideally, the system works frictionlessly and doesn't hallucinate
Right.
carryover effects, but yeah, there could be things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
I suspect a lot of like the clinical stuff is actually evolved systems for detecting when it doesn't work, right? Like I think it's
mhm.
probably it works really well, but it's this minority of times when
Yeah,
it doesn't, that's when it
yeah.
becomes part of our folk psychology. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can hear I did some therapy in Argentina because that's what Argentinians do. Like New Yorkers and the Argentinians are famous for going to a shrink uh, I can hear a therapist say, "But your girlfriend isn't your father." You
Right.
understand that, Daniel, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can
This
see that.
like
Yeah.
the whole the model of sort of yeah, exactly.
And then there's another interesting case, which is a kind of a dark side of shame. I'm replying to something you alluded to, and I'm forgetting what. But okay, something like as long as you don't do, as long as other. Okay, so we have a study with Tess Robertson, and you can feel shame. There's a side of shame that is dark. There's a guy who has a paper title "The Tortured Feel Shame" or something like that.
Hmm.
You can you can be made to feel shame if we are bullies and we maliciously are out to get you, like you're a Jew and we are Nazis,
Right.
and we have the power to humiliate you or kill you, and we just like to humiliate you because it's fun,
Right.
um, then people feel shame even though they haven't done anything wrong and they know
Right.
that they haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
But people in this kind of malicious dynamic, interpersonal or intergroup, they can be made to feel shame. And we have an
Hmm.
experiment in which, in a public good game contributions, there's some set of people who contributed everything, their private tokens to the public good. So they know in their heart of hearts that they are good people, altruistic, whatever, but they get feedback experimentally manipulated to the extent that no one wants to work with them because they're cheaters and they're bad people,
Mm.
and people feel shame. So that's
Yeah.
another story. But yeah,
Right. And
in
that
general,
That's
there's a
fascinating.
mesh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a really good, that's a prediction, right, of the idea that it is really, it cares about the social world
Yes.
and what you can do about the social world. So you know you did the right thing. You know you're a Jew in Germany. You didn't do anything wrong. This is unfair, but it's the reality you're living in, and you got to deal with that.
Yeah, totally. The Geiger counter system of evaluating these positively charged particles or value is highly tuned to the social reality, not to the cosmic objective reality.
Right.
And if other people are humiliating you or out to get you, dispossessing you, starving you, sending you to the gulag, etc., the shame system activates because you're having the social problem, whether or not you, in the eyes of God or the Lord Almighty, have
Hmm.
done things wrong or right.
Yeah.
Right.
The system is highly tuned to the very narrow set of inputs of the social evaluation system.
Right. And it would be very bad design if it was attuned to cosmic moral rightness or something like that. So if I don't feel shame for being a Jew in Nazi Germany because I did nothing wrong, well, bad things are going to happen to me. That's going to
Yeah,
be very bad for my well-being. If
yeah,
I'm a gay person in a homophobic community and I feel no shame about that, bad things are going to happen to me. So shame is actually doing things to protect me in the real environment that I actually inhabit, not independent of whether what I'm doing is wrong in some cosmic sense.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. And Daniel, how smart is the shame system? So, like in that example, let's just follow up, but that's a great example, Daniel. Like, so let's say so I'm gay and I feel shame, because the local social environment, but then there's like one particular place I always go where I'm safe. in the first couple times I go, I still feel sort of shame, but then I sort of warm up. Is there sort of like smartness to, and I think we've all experienced this, like some places we feel like status threatened and feel introverted and
Mm,
don't feel like
mm.
expressing ourselves. Other places we do. Do you have research on that? Have you thought about that? Like, can it be very context specific once
Yeah.
it learns that it's true? Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't published data. Maybe 20 years from now, we'll publish this, but we have a number of experiments with that, and shame is highly sensitive to
Mm,
audience. It's like the Lukashevsky kind to whom
right. Yeah.
effect. We care about people, Mary, there's a meme that Mary is good or nice, but what I care in Mary is she good to me? And I don't care too much if she's good to you or etc. So highly self-referential, and there's these evaluative systems are very highly self-referential to the
Right.
self. What I care about is evaluative affordances to me. If
Right.
someone is good to the Pope or to the whatever, I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I care, but insofar as the indirect effects impinge upon me. But so yeah, Darwin says that a girl who is highly shy in the world scene is extremely not shy in the eyes of those whose affection she's assured of, like her mother.
Right.
Darwin says that. So we have studies with supporting that idea.
Right. That's really interesting. I mean, it suggests that like the trope of people feeling like they find their community or like feeling like they need to be validated. It kind of sounds hokey, it sounds fluffy, but it suggests that it's actually the
Sure.
expression of the system that really has some teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Banger's paradox. That's very. Um,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can I share my favorite example of the other oriented nature of shame from culture that I
yes.
recently encountered? I found it fast. So, do you guys have you seen Total Recall, the Arnold
Yes. Yes.
Schwarzenegger movie where he goes on Mars and they're like
Hmm.
mutants on Mars? So there's a relatively well-known scene where he goes into this bar, or this like I think it's like maybe it's a strip club, I forget. And there's this mutant and she has three breasts, and there's this guy and he's like, "Oh baby, you made me wish I had three hands," right? So what's interesting is that when they were filming this, the actress who played the three-breasted woman who got like three prosthetic breasts put on her, she felt so humiliated and
Oh,
shameful for having to be the three-breasted woman, and she like burst into tears, and they had to stop filming. And To me, this is a really interesting example of how she did obviously she did nothing wrong. She's an actress playing a part in a movie. She doesn't actually have three breasts, right? But the mere thought that others might think of her or look upon her with disgust was what
right.
activated the shame. And so
Right.
to me, that's a really beautiful example of how shame is laser focused on other people's judgments or potential judgments, and sometimes even a hyper vigilant way where you're overestimating how much people are going to be disgusted with you or view you negatively, and
Right.
that is the trigger of the shame, more than doing anything cosmically wrong, as you put it,
Right.
Sneezer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it really does suggest, again, like I think the folk psychology really focuses on when it doesn't go right, where it's sort of
Mhm.
like you have like these wonderful people, like I'm thinking like, as a parent, like I think many parents have this experience of like their kid is doing something that has some attribute that either isn't as bad as they think it is, but they think it's really bad. Because like, well, let's say they stutter, and it's like, it's fine. You'll get over it. Or even if you don't, it's fine, or like, or if they're gay, right. Or just whatever. Um, the people that you care about, you see them sometimes sort of worry about an audience that they need to worry about. And it's sort of a conflict of sort of like, well, no, you're good, you're intrinsically fine, I value you, but I'm aware there's another audience that you're worried about.
Mm.
And
But
that difference or where it's a discrepancy, that's sort of like I think there's like a lot of folk attention to that. Yeah.
mm, mm. There's old sociologist, 1902, now 20th century is ancient history, but there's a guy by the name of Cooley, I think George or something Cooley, the mirror image self or something like that, phenomenology or something like that.
Mm.
And he has extremely brilliant insights on shame and pride and these self emotions. And he says something like these it's like an electrocardiogram of continuous registering of the tone of this other evaluative input in the form of shame and pride, even if it's not, peak as in you win the Olympics, but there's a continue. I see it's anecdote. I see that in myself. I'm highly other oriented, and some people are more, they don't care too much, or they seem to not care too much. But I can see it's like a continuous uh, input, for the good or for the bad, even tiny, even at the very low, it's highly precise. So we have another study, the same logic of shame and evaluation, and with a Canadian student, and we grab so Gelfand, Michelle, she has for her norm, tight or loose culture, she created stimuli that are in the form of three categorical set of things that are, highly non-violating, intermediate non-violating, and low non-violating. So they constructed 20 situations that are like completely kosher, 20 that are intermediate, and 20 that are like, you steal and you kill. Okay. So we looked at those. So pushing the system, how far the system can go, what's the resolution and the precision, and we don't have the minimal detectable, the just noticeable difference, and we don't have good calibration with the atomic resonance. What is a second? We don't have that objective standard to know what's the minimal unit, but but there's pretty strong shame tracking of devaluation, even for actions like you're sitting on your couch reading a book versus you are riding the bus versus you are at the store buying food. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's exactly that, the Cooley
So you're
notion.
gonna
There,
feel
there's an
you're gonna feel more.
there's an extraordinary sensitive
right.
machine for registering on a second by second basis this evaluative input of other people. It's amazing.
Mhm.
Right.
So I'm gonna feel more proud sitting on a couch reading a book than I am
Well,
riding a
well, yeah,
bus,
yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah,
yes.
because I'm
But
learning something, so that makes me a more valuable partner
I made up the
versus,
book thing.
yeah.
I made up the book thing, but there's you could
Mhm.
I could go back and maybe remove the things that are kind of more obvious, more, but there's really nothing, it's not, forget about the book.
Yeah, but
It's
it's
but there
example.
may be,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
something,
yeah. Or you're sitting on the TV,
evidently,
like
that the book
watching TV. Like imagine, just
could
imagine
be.
your boss.
Yeah.
You walk in and like you're either reading like a sophisticated book or like watching
Sure, sure, yeah, 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 yeah.
really like dumb and
Reality
no,
TV. Yeah.
yeah,
There's
exactly. Some
something.
lowbrow
There's some.
thing.
And
You just
yeah,
feel less
people do
comfortable.
people do
Yeah,
feel shame
yeah.
about watching
Yeah,
reality
Guilty
TV or
pleasure, guilty
yeah,
pleasure,
yeah, yeah.
guilty pleasure. Yeah,
guilty pleasure, as
exactly.
they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what?
I
So
don't, I don't, I
I
don't, because I never watch reality TV, but people
yeah,
tell me that they feel shame. Yeah,
Hmm.
sure, sure.
I'm
So I
only
want to get in.
highbrow.
I want to get into some stumpers like that. So what's going on? Why do people feel shame for watching reality TV? What is it about watching reality TV that makes you a worse social partner?
And to clarify, this is not a question about what makes reality TV bad.
Correct, correct. Though it may be
It
bad,
was a
but
joke. I know, Daniel. Yeah.
yeah. So why do people feel shame about watching trashy stuff? It's weird.
It's lowbrow coded, and I don't think everyone gets shame. Maybe intellectual types, but normal
Okay,
people may like it.
so it would depend on the specific audience. So more highly educated intellectuals might feel shame. Do you think it's because of the intellectual opportunity cost that like I could be watching a documentary or like a great black and white French film and instead I'm watching reality TV? You think that might be part of it?
Yeah, or to go full theory, it's if the intellectuals say that if you're an intellectual and it's common knowledge in the intellectual community that that's a lowbrow, low status thing, then you feel shame. If the intellectuals agree that it's risque and cool to say no to your duties, every now and then in Blue Sky or these places, they say it's cool to say no to your boss. I'm not 24 hours available. I also have a life. Let's fight for 25.
Mhm.
Then if it's cool, then maybe it's good to watch lowbrow.
Sure, but that
Yeah,
just raises the question of why watching lowbrow stuff would be uncool or low
yeah.
status or lowbrow. Like what grounds that?
So there you have two experts here to for what are coalitional values on how
So
the
you think it's a
dynamics of
group
value.
membership thing? It's like a group membership badge that we watch the intellectual stuff as a group, and if you don't watch intellectual stuff, then you're not a member of our group. That might that be it?
Not mixing meat and milk and or marrying or not marrying your
Hmm.
parallel cousin or not
And
eating with
so
your
it's
left
analogous
hand.
to like a food taboo or like a pattern of dress or something. It's just a way of mark demarcating rival groups.
Maybe.
I mean,
Interesting.
I also think like there's lots of things, right? Because the other
Yeah.
thing, David, so like for example, like let's say you're watching reality TV.
Yeah.
If we're both academics and I don't know you that well, you don't feel like I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I come in and I see you watching lowbrow TV, you might be worried that like, you know, you know, or let me try to. It's so hard to do common knowledge explicitly. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you have a representation of how smart I think you are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if I don't
Yeah.
know you that well, so you might be like, okay, Dave thinks I'm like, a 9 or a 10 smart. And I really am, but I just like this stuff and I do have psych of like reality TV. But he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know me that well. He's not going to give me the benefit of the doubt. So I'm worried when he sees me that he's going to make an inference of like the only people I know who watch this stuff are usually not doing it to like, find out about human nature of psych. So like the fact that he's enjoying this probably means he's like actually a 4 or 5 intelligence wise. And you're worried about that. That's one example. There's
Yeah.
probably a lot of
Yeah.
examples. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like if we have a better relationship or you
Mm.
trust me
Yep.
and I'm not going to view this as like I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm going to come in and be like, oh, David's watching this. Well, I know David's smart, like, or I know have enough information that like if he's watching this, it's not going to affect my inference about you and like
Mhm.
all the things that are valuable, like your work ethic, how smart you are, how funny you are. It's not going to hurt that. And if you have an accurate model of that, then you won't. And I think like feeling closeness or comfortable with somebody
Mhm.
to like laugh at stupid jokes, right? Like when you feel comfortable, you watch like lowbrow TV together.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, I've felt like watching TV for entertainment sometimes with people you don't know well kind of feels uncomfortable till you get to know them better.
Mhm.
And I think it's
Mhm.
probably part of this. It's just sort of like I'm like monitoring the costs to my
Interesting.
reputation here, right?
Right. So
Not only about seeming dumb perhaps, but
Yeah,
also a coordination about the values that you hold.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What if you laugh
exactly.
about a gay
Yeah,
joke, but they yeah.
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's that's an interesting idea. So if the amount of data you have about me is really sparse, then each individual data point is really
yeah,
going to matter more. And so it's going to really matter if you catch me watching reality TV and you don't know me well. Well, if that's the only information you have about me, then you're going to make stronger inferences about me and my intelligence or work ethic or whatever. But if you know me really well, you have a much larger data set. And me watching reality TV isn't going to change your estimate of me very much. And so it may be that when we feel closer to someone and we have more common experiences with them, we can sort of relax a little bit
right.
and not worry about each micro activity we engage in with
Aggression.
them. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
microaggression. Yeah,
And that really
sure.
suggests it's really smart because it actually
Yeah.
is like it's not only like what are the things I'm doing, like watching TV, relaxing, being like vulnerable with this other person. It's also then like there's a constant update of sort of what do they know about me and how do I think the event I'm doing now of putting my foot up, belching, watching reality TV, how is that going to affect their assessment of me? So it really suggests like a very rich representational system of like, what am I doing and how will it be received by this other person given what they know about me currently?
Hmm. Yeah. I want to add another layer on top of this. I think self-control is probably part of it too. So
Mm,
Leo Fatucci, who we should probably have on at some point, has done really interesting work on how self-control and delaying gratification is moralized, that we view people who
Mhm.
have a lot of self-discipline as more virtuous, and we view activities as expressing your self-discipline or self-control as being morally praiseworthy. And his argument is that you need self-control to be a good cooperative partner. That part of being in a cooperative relationship with someone is resisting the short-term temptation to defect. So if you can think about it as a marriage, if we're married to each other, I have to resist the short-term temptation of cheating with someone because I might get a short-term benefit, but in the long run, it'll harm my committed relationship. So if you're going to trust me to be a good committed partner, a good thing to look for is my ability to resist temptations, right? And so we use self-control, self discipline as a cue to a person's cooperative potential, their trustworthiness, their likelihood of being able to commit to us over the long run. And it may be that if you do things that require a lot of self-control, like watching a really boring movie or really reading a really long, boring book, that suggests that you have a lot of self-control and you're a really virtuous person. But if you're watching stuff that you don't need any self-control at all, it's just immediately gratifying, like reality TV or junk food, then that suggests that you don't really have a lot of self-control. And so I think that might, so there might be an element of virtue and virtue signaling in here as well, that it's seen as more virtuous to watch the black and white French film or to read the long boring novel from the 1800s in Russia or whatever. Like that shows that I have a lot of self-discipline and I'm going to be a virtuous person.
Mm. Interesting.
Okay, I got some more stumpers for you, Sneezer. Why should we be proud of the fact that we're humble? So if you think about humility as not being proud or not being arrogant or boastful about yourself, why should we be proud of the fact that we're not proud? Why should we be proud of our humility?
Um, so that is the topic of a paper that we have in the works with Landers and Durkee again, but in the pride domain. So pride has a mixed reputation in the Bible. My go-to book says that pride uh, before
Cometh
the
before
fall
fall. Yeah. Goeth before. Fine.
and a haughty spirit something.
Yeah.
Before the fall, there is hubris and arrogance, and pride is followed by catastrophe. Hmm. But at the on the other hand, it's also the case that pride is part of a price system in the positive range of the price the brain collected. He left.
Oh,
He
yeah.
disappeared.
Yeah, David will be back. But just while David's coming back, it's
Ah,
pride goeth before destruction. Goeth.
both,
I love
both
that. Okay. Pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall.
before the fall.
Yeah. So there you go. All the people who know the Bible better than us were cringing a few moments ago.
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry, yeah, it's a mortal offense to not know the Bible,
No,
for
it's
which I
okay.
apologize.
You shouldn't apologize. You should not feel shame.
I feel shame.
Yeah.
Okay, and pride is also part of a price system that tells you the implicitly the collective price attached to positive things, and it so pride provides the incentive. Pride has a bad reputation. The Lord Almighty in heaven punishes if you have too much pride, but at the same time, pride provides the incentive for producing as a side effect of your status pursuits, socially valuable outcomes. So it's really the prize system in the social games with
Mm.
which people produce great societal things, civilizations, families, conquests, commercial quests, population of new environments. Great things, big and small, are driven in big part by pride and the carrot of having higher status if you achieve these things. So
Right.
pride is, as a side effect of pride, you have great stuff
Right.
and
So like if
civilization.
if you were to impair like if you think about humans as squishy robots, if you were to like snip out the pride system, probably a lot of the good or like non-entropic stuff that has been produced by humans over history would probably not exist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so.
Interesting. Okay,
And
here's an yeah, go ahead.
no, okay. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I found the Bible quote, David. It was pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. So
Ah, that's a lovely example
yeah.
of the
Quite
paradoxical
well.
nature of pride. So if you have anything more to add it, but if not, I'll move on to the next stumper.
Long story short,
Yeah.
Jessica Tracy, one person in the Tangni realm intrapersonal, she started off with a theory of pride as intrapersonal. It's pride is the bad pride is if I attribute the success to my great self. It's good pride if I think the pride is due to my action.
Mm.
But we have falsificationist experiments run in several countries showing that the there's probably we believe that these two facets or subtypes of prides is not a thing. There's a pride system that is complex, and the moniker or the concept of hubris or arrogance is not so much a pride system, but rather a concept leverage at those who claim too much respect. It's a concept applied to other people. I'm not arrogant. You are arrogant,
Right.
Dave.
Right.
I'm not
Exactly.
arrogant.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's you guys, you're who are urban.
Yes.
And and we have support for that in our papers. And again, like in the shame and guilt paper, we have strong support for the interpersonal theory of pride and low support for the attributional theory of pride. And I think what happens is we show that the hubris thing is a function of the degree to which a person or someone else overclaims relative to the true social price of the action that they attain. And so arrogance people don't like because for various reasons, because you have to pay higher than the price that they're worth, and that's excessive cost. That's not good. But also in envious rivalrous relationships, if you achieve, even if you're correctly calibrated, that's bad for me. So there's a number of things. But long story short, arrogance people dislike for those reasons. And so to show lack of arrogance is good, and so to show proper calibration is good.
Mhm.
It's better than if you show excessive pride from the standpoint of showing the
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
And you may still get some crap if other people are envious. And you have a bullshit also side to the story,
Mhm.
which is pretending that. So all the academics now are hot about humility, and that seems like bullshit, if I could paraphrase you. And humble brag or something that seems like bullshit. They now that they have achieved it seems like the kind of stuff that you do when you have achieved and you promulgate and you proselytize so that the upstarts don't dethrone you or something like that. It
Mm.
could be in
Mm.
part.
Yeah. I mean, because I'll often talk about humility being a good thing, so I'm going to defend humility a little bit, which is the way
Mhm.
I use it, at least, is sort of um, it's calling out a status game that's sort of orthogonal to the one I think we should be playing. So, for example, like not like studying kids or like women's social coalitional power, because like those are important aspects of like human phenotypes, but like they're low bargaining power entities in our cultural milieu. And so like being humble about like that, these are important classes of evolved situations of like being a kid, being a woman, like, having low bargaining power. Um, the call to humility is sort of like don't just read out of sort of like what's status aspirational in your mind, scientists. Think about the things that like are humble um, in order to sort of pursue those things, like the low bargaining power situations or people. So that's my defense of like a call to humility.
Sorry, I couldn't follow if
Yeah.
you're saying people with low bargaining power are humble in their relationship with more powerful people, or intellectuals who or academics who study women they need to be humble in order to be open to the what low power people do, or
Yeah, I think I mean the second one. I mean, I think the first is true, but like I think the second one is what I mean in this context. Yeah, that's right. Like I think that there's you can look at like evolved psychologies of scientists and sort of say we should be more humble, which could mean like it doesn't just mean like, keep affording me the status, Daniel, or if I tell you to be humble, right? It could mean like, yeah, I've made it and I want you to not, be an upstart against me. But it could
yep,
also mean like we should we might be blind to like looking at things, respecting
yep,
things that we don't respect
I
because of the
see.
bargaining power status that our brains register, right?
Yeah.
So the call to study non-weird people is humble. We should look beyond our own navel and
Exactly. Or like
sure,
like
yep.
if there's a category of people that like our society devalues, and to the extent that I register that and that biases me not even understanding like the psychology of those people, a call
Mm.
to humility is sort of like don't use the readout of your value system as a human being or correct for that when you're doing the science, is a way to put it.
That's not to psychoanalyze you or anything,
Yeah.
but that sounds like the AWA system in the form of noblesse oblige, because traditionally it's the peasant that owes me allegiance and respect if I'm the king.
Right.
That's but in the noblesse oblige of this thing, we are now enlightened elites, and we can uh give voice to the unvoiced or the platform. Yeah, okay. So
Right.
it sounds like that, but in the liberal value. Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Next stumper, fashion. So my wife has been telling me that apparently baggy pants are in, and all of my pants are non-baggy. And so when I was alerted to this fact, I'm like, oh no, my entire wardrobe is uncool.
You
I'm an uncool person.
yeah, keep your wardrobe from like 20 years ago. Just it's gonna come
Just
back.
wait it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if
Yes.
I wait it out, if I do that strategy, I'm going to be uncool for a certain period of time, and I might even feel some shame about being uncool and wearing
Mm.
unfashionable clothes. What on earth is that about? Why should I be feeling shame for the bagginess or lack thereof of my pants? What does that have to do with my value as a social partner, Daniel Sneezer?
Well, if it's your wife, not to get inside of your bedroom, I don't want to
No,
know
you're
either.
welcome. You're welcome in my bedroom, Daniel.
But well, then
We
Well,
got a lot of
that's a
quotes in
different
I'll
this
be
topic.
happy to
episode. We
join
got a
you.
lot of quotes. We can,
But if
Uh,
your wife is giving you hints that your fashion is out of step, then maybe I don't know.
so you think the fact that it's coming from my wife, if it was coming from someone else, maybe I wouldn't feel shame.
Yeah, I don't know.
did she bring it up, David, or did you
Well,
notice
I mean,
people wearing
my
baggy
wife is
pants?
incredibly fashionable, and
Oh,
she's
I see.
very,
Mm,
very, gets compliments all the time about, her outfits. So I trust her as an authority on what
Mm.
is cool and what isn't. It's not merely that she's my wife. It's that I trust her judgments on this
Yeah.
matter.
But did you bring it up or did she bring it up? The pants.
She brought it up.
Oh, okay, yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
I don't know fashion because I could never afford more than Old Navy things at a discount. But but yeah, I guess yeah, I don't know these fashion things, but I guess if your wife tells you things like this is the first order, right? I don't know the more exotic games, but hey, honey, you have your belly is too big, or
Hmm.
you ain't the tiger that you used to be, or something like that, then that gives you pause, right?
Hmm. Well, that makes sense. But and then it just begs the question of why she or others would be using the bagginess of my pants as a
Hmm.
criterion for evaluating my character. What on earth does that have to do with my value as a social partner?
Yeah, that seems crazy.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe she's worried. Maybe it's like a humor thing where it's sort of like you don't know the. It's a worry that she's on top of the changing coordination norms, And she said, "Oh well, David is, and I'm in the same boat. So I'm not saying this just about you, like, because I also don't have baggy pants. But um, if David is blind to these changing norms, there's a concern that your coordination and just keeping up to date with sort of what is the culture valuing, it's a cue that
Mm.
you're no longer, um, and there might even be well, let me finish the sentence there, you're no longer keeping up to date as much as you need to. And I do wonder, like,
Mm.
there's these tropes of like, I don't like, as you get older, like kids are just like sponges of sort of like, what's the
Yeah.
coordination game, what's the status game. There's like a certain age where you're just like, I've ballistically committed to one of these. Right. And like there might even be like recursion of sort of like that's known. And so she's sort of like, David, are you like ossifying like
Uh,
culturally with your status game? Like that might even be like
like
Mm.
probing for that.
So it's a cue to my low social intelligence, my low ability to coordinate on the changing social conventions and social norms, and that's a cue that I'm going to do lots of awkward, oafish things in social interactions and make various faux pas, and that's just a cue to my social intelligence and coordination ability. I buy that. I think
Right.
that's a good explanation.
Yeah.
And then, it's empirically testable too. You would
Yeah.
expect, people to draw inferences about more well-dressed, fashionable people as being more socially intelligent, and you would
Mm.
expect that inference to be correct. That is, more fashionable people should be more socially intelligent. They should be better at playing coordination games than less
Yeah.
fashionable people.
Yeah. The age thing
Uh,
is really interesting too. Like I threw out all this. I mean, I know we're all
yeah,
parents too. Like this whole thing about like kind of shame and guilt, like kids, there's this thing that this trope of sort of guilt is useless or shame is useless, and
yep,
kids learn it. And I think like there's
hmm,
something to that, right? In the sense of like it's
yeah,
calibrated to the social world. But like clearly the conclusion here is like it's not useless. But there is like this lifespan trajectory of sort of acquiring this, becoming worried about things. Infants don't seem to
mm,
have this, right? Or
mm.
young kids don't.
There's stuff on the life history, life trajectory of shame, and it doesn't track exactly what you mentioned about ballisticness. Now I'm retired and I don't give a fuck about what other people think of me.
Right.
But it's U-shaped in that there's another effect when you're old, in that
Mm.
you lose your muscle tone and
Right.
skills, etc., and you become dependent on others. So
Yes.
there's higher shame.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Chris von Ruden mentioned that too, that really like the status, and the dimensions of status, like the oldest people. Um, it can happen, but that very much matches with him and his experience in Schwarland. Yeah.
my grandma, the Polish grandma that I have, may the Lord bless her soul, she told me something that was shockingly hilarious. Namely, she was very old, and she told me something like, I can't reproduce exactly, but something like, "Don't put me in an old people's home," or something like that, because I dislike old people. They're ugly, they're disgusting. And she was saying that as an old person herself, but she didn't like old people.
Right.
And where I'm going with this, yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
that you can
The loss
view
of
traits that
functionality.
you possess as low value. You can be disgusted by people who are just like you. Uh,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. So the mistake is that we think that if we are in a class of people or we have some identity, then it's automatically valuable. And maybe there's some streams of elements that make you do that. But on the other hand, you have the ancient machines for assessing mate value and
right,
skills and force and this and that, productivity, and those are low.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
ugly people are going to think hot people are hot just as much as hot people think hot
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
hot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, interesting. Okay. Um, well, I have a few more stumpers. Maybe do one more and then we'll
Yeah.
wrap things up.
Yeah. Yeah. Pick a good one.
So, okay.
They're all good.
Traveling. People often get status for having traveled to
Mm.
exotic locations. and people often humble brag about their wonderful vacations that they've taken. If you've been to many places in Europe, uh, places very far away, the further away you go, the more status you gain, I think. Why, what is going on there? Why is that a cue to a valuable social partner?
Well, you have money and you have the insulation from the consequences of traveling to faraway places with no kin or something. And so you're powerful, uh, less powerful, resourceful people can ill tr they have to toil endlessly in pain. So maybe it's
Hmm.
a cue that you have what it takes to do that.
Hmm. So I'm
Um,
sturdy and I'm wealthy. That's
I noticed
I think
that,
that's probably partly what's going on. But I would imagine that the inference would still be there even if I'm not the one who's paying for it. If someone else is paying me to travel to exotic lands, say I'm a journalist and I'm traveling to very far away places to do journalism work, I feel like you would.
but you have the you acquire the knowledge in other remote places, but also you have the social worth big enough for someone else to pay your thing,
Right.
so your
Or
jacket.
like,
So
yeah. Or like when I lived in Berlin, like a trip to like Barcelona was like 45 euros.
Mhm.
And so yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I agree, Daniel. Like I think there is something definitely to that. I mean, do you think it's also like just this thing of like again, it's like social capital, right? It's just sort of like
you know, our people.
and you know another place. Like I can say like living in another country, it took a really long time to get adaptable
uh,
to that. And I can tell you right now, like if we all went to Berlin, I could like really coordinate for all three of us in a way that it took me like
Years.
months and I was like in
Or
tears sometimes, like
yeah.
of being just discoordinated. And so like I value that about like
Oh yeah.
that I have that skill. Like it's almost like a hunting skill. Like I know how to, I know how to be in a place. And I think that like that's pretty valuable.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. One of the favorite pastimes of Jews is to map out early on two Jews meet for the first time from different countries or from different states or whatever. And a favorite pastime of Jews, having been dispossessed and slaughtered, etc., is to map out in geography and in social landscape and in geographical landscape who they know in joint. And this is a big important
Hmm.
things that I suspect that maybe other people do that too. I suspect it's a universal, but it's
Oh, you know this person. I know that person too, and I know this
yeah,
other person in that same place. Does that person know this person? And what about this place? They used to be in this place. Do you know it's basically the richer your view of the geographic landscape and how it intersects with your social network, the more escape routes you potentially have should you be in danger, right? The more people
yes,
you know in a
yes,
faraway place that you can go and potentially meet up with them.
yes.
Uh, yeah, interesting.
It's not exactly the competitive game, or it could be competitive, but it's also collaborative because it's joint and there's seems more collaborative. It's not so much bragging, although there could be some of that. There's a fantastic book in the 10th century by one Benjamin of Tudela. Tudela is a city in Spain. And the guy traveled a little bit like Marco Polo from his small town in Spain to out of Europe and Mesopotamia or Iraq, uh, Israel, and many Syria, Lebanon. And he gives a census of all the Jewish communities, 500 here and 200 here, and the book is absolutely fascinating, down to the name of the notables and the professions. And I don't know why I'm mentioning this, but it's absolutely fascinating as a piece of historical literature and psychology too, I think.
Yeah. I think getting the lay of the land, like even like mundane things, like even I like if you go like if we all went for like a hike in the backcountry of like Southern California and it's like hot and dangerous and there's somebody who is like skilled and knows stuff, like you just kind of value that, right? Of like, this is somebody
Mhm.
who knows the landscape. We're not going to get lost. They know like
Mm.
where water is. It's not exactly that, but it's kind of that's like a very like light version of this thing where there's
Yeah.
just sort of like somebody knows the lay of the land, can navigate well, knows more about it than you do, and can kind of be your
Mhm.
tour guide, you know?
Yeah, it's
And,
interesting. There might even be a bit of mismatch. If we lived in smaller geographic locations ancestrally, then a person who has been to more distant regions is going to be more useful because maybe they'll be able to guide you through that new region if you need to go there. But in a more globalized world, like someone who's been to Morocco, I'm probably maybe
Yeah,
I'll never go to
exactly.
Morocco in my entire life, but they
Right,
still get status for having been to Morocco because sort of
right,
my Stone Age mind thinks that that's useful information that
right,
might come in handy someday, even though it probably won't, right?
right.
Because our Stone Age mind is adapted to a smaller geographic circle.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
editors and reviewers value your paper to the degree that your data are hard to get, and part of the
Yes.
hardness to get is the distance that you travel to get that data. And
Hmm.
it's been devalued by mturk because you can collect. So in the early 2000s, when there was no mturk, if I get data from India, I get a top journal because it's the labor theory of value, Marxist
Right,
theory of value applied to academia. I
right.
traveled
Hmm.
far away, I trekked a lot, and I collected exotic data, and I'm cool, I have high status. But fast forward 10 or 15 years, I send my papers with India mturk,
Yeah,
and it's not weird, and it's all
yeah,
hat, and who
yeah, yeah,
cares
yeah.
because I have the
Mm.
mturk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost
That's
it almost
that's
ties
Adam
back to
Smith
the
too. That's Adam Smith, not just Marx.
yeah, but that ties back to the idea of the virtue of self-control, that if you have the amount of self-discipline to travel to an exotic location and brave the wilderness and the novelty there, then you must really be a virtuous, committed person. But if you just get a bunch of easy data on MTurk, any schmuck could do that.
Benchmark, yep.
Exactly.
Right.
Daniel, one question for you. One question is because we're wrapping up, is we spent some time together in CP. You spent a lot of time with John Tooby. We don't always talk about, but we've had like some Tubi students on, and we miss John. Do you have any sort of like, and I don't want to like put you on the spot, but is there anything about John that like for people who didn't know him, or like to convey sort of like what being around John was like, or we both spent a lot of time with him, but part of the point of doing this is sort of like getting people to know the people doing EvPsych. One of the people we can't do that for anymore is John. Is there something that you think of that sort of conveys what John was like, or an alternative is sort of like, you know, for me at least, working with John and Lita, like they really were important in this field, and it's such an honor to have worked with them. For you, how has it been, or what was it like kind of working with them, and sort of how do you think about that going forward and sort of continuing the legacy of their work?
Uh, you put me in an emotional spot. It's hard
Yeah,
to
sorry. Yeah.
say, but to say that I owe them my life would be a little bit too dramatic, but it was something like that.
Mm,
Initially in the lab, I was extremely shameful because they are gods and I was um, a lowly creature. And but paradoxically, because they are incredibly kind, as everyone says, uh, not corresponding with the amount of power that they have given their wisdom. So slowly, I'm a slow thinker, and it took me very long time to calibrate to the American experience. That I could stare at them in the eyes or call them by their first names, etc. And then at some point it clicked, and I was spending many long hours at night in their home, making completely inappropriate jokes with to be unspeakable things like he was like a father. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. He, he
Yeah.
he was an incredible observer and hysterically hilarious,
Oh, so funny.
unspeakably funny.
Yes.
He would see things in me that I didn't know about myself. So yeah,
Yeah.
very, very extremely brilliant and extremely kind and nice
Yeah.
and funny and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. And for
To,
John, for me, it was like there was just this category of like people who every time they open their mouth, they learn something. And John was like that category for me. Yeah. A
yeah,
small
yeah.
group. Yeah.
And I feel imposter syndrome in that till today, in that people ask me things, and some things I memorized by rote, shame, blah blah, and sometimes I'm asked things I'm out of my comfort zone because I don't know things by rote and I don't know what to say, and so I'm like an empty. I have no idea, but I say, okay, I'm an empty tube, and let's say what Tubi would say, and
Exactly.
something
Yes.
completely not completely incoherent comes out, but it's only because of Tubi. It's not
Yeah.
because of
You
me.
have an
I'm just
inner
a
Truby. I know.
tube.
I do the exact same thing. I'll often be like, what would John, what's the to be thing right here? Yeah. Exactly.
Too bad that his phenotype,
WWJD, what would John do?
Exactly.
yes, too bad that
Yeah.
his phenotype didn't correspond with the greatness of his soul and spirit and
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything that we should have asked you, Daniel?
Yeah, but maybe not for public consumption.
Well,
Uh,
on that
I,
note,
and I'm working on stuff on human nature and value in general. So maybe at some point we
okay.
can chat. But
Yeah, that sounds great.
it was delightful to chat with you. I was feeling a little bit down about the entropic nature of the world, but you guys made me feel more fuzzy and
Oh,
nice. So
that's
that's good.
great. Reverse
Yeah.
entropy for a couple hours. That could be our
Yes.
tagline. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your interest and for creating this service to the whoever is watching this.
Yeah,
It's very
and
good.
Daniel, we are proud of your work. I mean, I will say like the emotion work and just the function, the beautiful predictions and the rapidity with which you've collected beautiful cross-cultural data and the people who are just interested in the emotions don't have a dog in the fight of like evolution or not. There's just so many people who I'm meeting that love your emotion work because it's just clarifying like, oh, I understand if the function of it is this, I can make better predictions. I can understand it. I can understand what conditions elicit, what outputs it will generate. And I think like the work you're doing is just such a good example of like, at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding, and you're just doing a wonderful job, like in providing insight to these important things like shame and guilt and pride and things like that.
Yes,
Thank you.
beautiful is the correct word. When I do look at your work, Daniel, I am sort of confronted with a feeling of scientific or epistemic beauty, just the elegance, the parsimony, the the powerful effect sizes, the cross-cultural regularities. You get the sense that you're glimpsing the contours of human nature in your work, and it's really beautiful to behold.
Yeah.
That's high praise. If one person doesn't find what I do worthless, then that I have achieved. Yeah, that would be a completely inappropriate low bar for the private sector. But given that I'm a government employee, I think that's a high breakthrough, and for which I'm very grateful to my life givers, to being Lida, and also to your company of great intellect and menschfulness.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, wonderful, Daniel. Thank you. And thanks again for being here. More fun
Thank
knowing
you.
you
Thank you so
again.
much.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, you're still listening. Good for you.
I'm proud.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of us. What else can you do to express your pride for having listened to this wonderful episode and avoid the shame of, well, I don't know what you'd be ashamed of, but what can you do to support us, Dave?
Well, I mean, before you even do that, I mean, you could look, we'll put a link to Daniel's info in the show notes. You can look up
Yes.
Daniel's
Honestly,
wonderful
every
work.
single thing this guy has written is gold, so I would recommend
Yeah.
just reading through his research catalog.
Daniel's a beautiful writer too,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
just to say, yeah. So,
Definitely.
yeah. But as far as we're concerned, keep listening.
Hmm.
Subscribe, leave a positive review. Um, I'm
Tell a
really
friend
tell a
that we're
friend. Yeah,
awesome.
that would be really helpful. I mean, I
Hmm.
think I really do like the idea of shouting it to other people, but probably don't do that.
Yeah. But yeah, and also you can, contribute to our Patreon account if you want to
Hmm.
be really generous and feel
Yeah,
really proud of yourself.
yeah, that sounds good. So, and just, take a moment to be proud of yourself for something that you're gonna do this week.
Yeah, but don't be too proud. Don't be arrogant because that would be bad.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're arrogant, don't be. But if you're not arrogant, do it. But
Yeah.
I have a question. Do people who are arrogant think they're arrogant?
That might be the topic of a whole new episode.
Ooh, yeah, maybe we have to have some people back. Okay. Well, and
All
on
right.
that note, have a good week and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.